up, the squad? It's your favorite Auntie with Uncle Tendencies, and welcome back to the CBA Reckoning. Only on Cess Talks Sports and the BEWISE PoliSports Tea Time, where we don't sugarcoat nothing. We serve straight race, labor, power, and the fight for real equity in women's sports. Now today, we're not tiptoeing around no boardroom feelings. We outside with it. This episode, Unrivaled, the uprising against the WNBA status quo. Let's get one thing clear. This ain't just another basketball discussion. This is a labor liberation in motion. This is what happens when elite athletes stop knocking politely and start building the damn door themselves. And now the whole system looking shook. While the WNBA is still out here playing cute behind smoke and mirror media packages, underpaying the same black women who built the brand, clinging to outdated ownership models like church pearls, a movement been bubbling. And now it's boiling. Enter Unrivaled. Born from the vision of Napheesa Collier and Breanna Stewart, this ain't no off-season side gig. It's a declaration. It's not just a league. It's a warning shot across the bow. Unrivaled is what happens when athletes get tired of being underpaid, overworked, and overlooked. They stop waiting on equity and start engineering it. They demand more than just a seat. They take the whole table. This ain't a collab. It's a revolution with a scoreboard. Because Unrivaled ain't just about basketball. It's about ownership. It's about liberation. It's about saying, we ain't asking anymore. We taking what's ours. So buckle up, fam, because this conversation, it's about to flip the whole landscape. Let's talk power. Let's talk black women. Let's talk Unrivaled.
Exactly. What makes Unrivaled dangerous and brilliant is that it flips the very foundation the WNBA was built on. Instead of asking for better contracts, this league says we'll own the platform, split the profits, and make the rules. This is about taking the labor and turning it into leverage, turning visibility into value, turning legacy into ownership. And that's why the system is shook. Because if this works, and we'll break down how it's structured later, it becomes the model that other athletes, even across different sports, can replicate. Think NIL deals for scaled up. Think collective bargaining, but with equity stakes built in from day one. This isn't just about player empowerment. This is about players becoming executives, owners, and industry disruptors.
All right, we about to walk you through what Unrivaled really is. Not the fluff, not the buzzword bonanza from corporate PR. We're taking you past the press release and into the pressure that birthed it. Why it matters? Because it don't just expose the cracks in the W's labor foundation. It straight up puts a spotlight on who really holds the power when players stop asking and start acting. Let's make it plain. This ain't a moment, it's the model. This is the future, not just for women's hoops, but for any athlete tired of begging for equity in systems that were never meant to protect them in the first place. So stay locked in, because what you're about to hear ain't just commentary, it's a case study in flipping the whole damn industry. Unrivaled didn't just appear out of nowhere. But listen, y'all, this ain't just a league, it's a flex. Y'all understand? It's not just a league, it's a flex. It came from pressure, from burnout, from survival mode in a system that's been failing athletes for decades. If you've been riding with us through episodes 1 and 2 of the CBA Reckoning, then you already know the backdrop. Low W salaries, risky, unstable overseas grinds, no off-season protection, no long-term vision, no real health support. Players walking a high wire with no net, while execs pack themselves on the back for progress. And two real ones, Napheesa Collier and Breanna Stewart, finally said what needed to be said. Enough. They looked at the landscape and saw what so many already knew in their spirit. This system wasn't built to protect us. It was built to profit off us. And Collier didn't whisper that truth. She shouted it. We wanted a league that works for us, not one that profits off us. That ain't rebellion. That ain't ego. That's strategy. That's survival. That's power in motion. Because Unrivaled is a calculated clapback to exploitation. It's a pivot, a pressure point, a whole new lane. And let's be clear, if the powers that be won't build better, best believe the players will. And that's exactly what they did. This episode, we break it all down. The vision, the business, the why behind the what. So pull up, hit play, and pay attention. Because this ain't just women's basketball history. It's a masterclass in building your own empire when the game was never made for you to win.
That's the power of Unrivaled. It's not just a league, it's a blueprint. Let's talk about how it works. Unrivaled is a 3-on-3 player-owned league launched in early 2025, and it was designed to run in the WNBA off-season, a time when players are forced to go overseas just to make ends meet. But now, instead of chasing checks in Russia or Turkey under dangerous and draining conditions, players can stay home, stay safe, and still get paid fairly. The structure, Player ownership is central. That means the athletes have equity in the league. They have voting power. They sit at the business table, not the scorer's table. No more being the product while others collect the profit. Here's the product. Here, the product is the ownership. Funding, they already secured major backing. Over $100 million, including a broadcast deal from TNT, high-profile investors committed to long-term growth. They're not building this to compete with the W. They're building it to liberate the labor that the WNBA has underpaid and overworked for years. And that's the disruption. Because once athletes start learning that ownership isn't just for billionaires or retired legends, that you can be a player and an owner at the same time, the whole industry shifts. Ownership means you choose how revenue is distributed. You control your likeness, content, and branding. You help determine rules, schedule, safety protocols, and strategy. It's not about taking the league down. It's about lifting players up. It's about proving that the labor force in women's basketball, especially Black women, don't have to wait for access. They can build power from the ground up. And let's be real, the WNBA has always had the power to do this. They could have created all-season leagues, equity options, real profit sharing, but they didn't. Unrivaled is a mirror held up to the league that's soul empowerment, but within ownership. This new league says, we're not waiting anymore. We're building systems that honor our talent, respect our time, and cut us in on the business we keep alive. Now let's talk about why Unrivaled isn't just different. It's dangerous to the status quo because this league didn't just launch with hype and hope. It launched with a strategic business model that opposes every limitation the WNBA has refused to fix. Let's start with the foundation, player ownership. That's not just a slogan, it's structural. Every athlete participating in Unrivaled will hold equity in the league. That means they're not just suiting up. They're voting, profiting, and making decisions about the product they create. They've turned the labor force into a leadership class. That's how you flip the table. And the format, 3-on-3, fast-paced, media optimized, it's built for Gen Z, scroll culture, and sports highlight reels. It's easier on the body, doesn't require 40-minute grinds, and creates a more intimate fan-player connection. Less wear and tear, more storytelling, and a clever spotlight on individual skills. And you already know the money followed the vision. That this isn't some scrappy do-it-yourself operation. Unrivaled secured that $100 million broadcast deal with TNT, which immediately legitimized the league before it even tipped off. That's legacy, TV money, corporate partnership interests, and serious investment capital, signaling that the player-led model are not just viable, they're the future. They've rolled it out in several major cities, creating regional hubs that can build loyal fan bases, connected with local economies, and giving players homegrown visibility. And most importantly, it all happens in the off season, January through March. That's not accidental. That's intentional. No competition with the WNBA, no burnout from international flights, just pure control player-owned momentum. This sets up work because it honors the reality of the players' lives, not the myth that they should be grateful to chase checks overseas. Unrivaled says, stay home, get paid, build legacy.
And let's get one thing straight. Unrivaled ain't asking for nobody's permission. They didn't wait for gatekeepers. They didn't ask legacy media for a cosign. They didn't bow to tradition or politics. They just built. They took it straight to the people with a product that's clean, creative, and centered on the labor force. The very women who've been treated like accessories in the league they carry. They flipped the script, took the power, kept the audience, and dodged the gatekeepers. This is what happens when athletes say, you're not going to keep making billions off our backs while handing out pennies and photo ops. Because this ain't just about another paycheck. It's about building a new economic reality. A whole new playbook where the players are the brand, the boardroom, and the backbone. And yeah, it's a threat. Make no mistake. Because once Unrivaled proves that player ownership works, every traditional league from the WNBA to the NBA to pro soccer and volleyball got to answer one question. Why haven't you done the same? That whole we're innovative shtick starts looking real exploitive when a locker room full of athletes does what billion-dollar execs never even attempted. Unrivaled ain't here to play nice. They're here to drop receipts, shift narratives, and raise the damn standard. This ain't just the next phase of athlete empowerment. This is the blueprint for liberation. And don't get it twisted. It ain't coming from a corner office. It came straight out the locker room. Now, let's keep it all the way real. The WNBA ain't watching Unrivaled like it's a cute off-season content. They're sweating. Because deep down, the folks in power know this isn't just a side league. This is a systemic disruption. Unrivaled pulls the curtain back on the W's biggest fear, losing control. For decades, the WNBA sold itself as the only legitimate platform. If you wanted media coverage, a brand deal, real spotlight, you had to go through them. They curated the narrative, handpicked the stars, and managed the movement. But now, players are building their own media, controlling their own brands, calling their own shots. No filters, no middlemen, no league-approved script. That kind of freedom, that kind of independent narrative power, that's dangerous to a league that's built its business on controlling who gets heard, who gets paid, and whose demands get labeled acceptable. And Unrivaled just shattered that illusion.
And let's not forget, Unrivaled wasn't created by players on the margins. This was launched by two of the WNBA biggest stars, Stewart and Napheesa Collier. They're still suiting up for the league, still playing at an elite level, but now they're doing it with leverage. That's the part that rattles the system. These aren't retirees or rebels. They're insiders who have outgrown the limitations of the system and decided to expand the playing field. And the league can't ignore that, because what happens when the next generation sees this model? What happens when players realize they can be both employee and executive, both franchise star and business founder? You start to see a talent drain, not just from the court, but from the emotional loyalty that's held the WNBA together. If Unrivaled scales, if it delivers on this promise of player profit sharing, health protections, and narrative autonomy, that's not just competition. That's an exit ramp from dependence. This is deeper than just another league on the block. It's a real-time shift in the balance of power. The WNBA has thrived in part by being a gatekeeper, but now Unrivaled kicks the gate open and says, hey, build your own court. And you can feel the discomfort in how little the W has publicly acknowledged it, because any real engagement, any endorsement would legitimize the league that's daring to do what the W hasn't. Center the labor force, not the legacy boardroom.
This ain't a protest league, it's a power league. And that scares the hell out of those who thought they owned the future. So when we say the system's panicking, that's not hyperbole. It's economics, politics, and branding all colliding at once. Unrivaled puts the W on notice. Your stars have options now. Your monopoly is broken. Your labor force is waking up. And maybe, just maybe, this is a wake-up call women's sports needed all along. Now let's widen the lens. What Unrivaled is doing isn't just bold. It's part of a broader movement reshaping how athletes engage with the very systems that monetize their talent. And to help us connect those dots, we tapped into insights from labor economists and league structure analysts who've been tracking this shift for years. Here's the unfiltered truth. When players have equity, they stay. When they're treated like disposable labor, they bounce the second a better opportunity shows up. And if you know your sports history, you've seen this pattern before, over and over again. Take the big three. Ice Cube's men's 3-on-3 league. It's not trying to be the NBA, and it doesn't have to be, because what it does have is a loyal talent pool built on ownership stakes, media rights, and player-led branding. Players aren't just clocking in, they're invested. They have a real seat at the table and something to show for it besides highlight reels. And what's that create? Retention, buy-in, long-term business growth without having to kiss the ring of outdated gatekeepers. That's not a trend, that's a strategy. And Unrivaled is putting to work for women's basketball in a way the industry can't ignore.
Exactly. And then there's LIV Golf, arguably one of the most controversial but successful player disruptive leagues in the modern era, backed by some deep pockets, yes, but also built on the idea that elite athletes shouldn't have to beg for equity. They should build with it. LIV drew top-tier golfers away from the PGA, not just with the paychecks, but with partnership terms, with freedom, and with the promise of reclaiming control over their careers. It forced the PGA to completely rethink its structure, even prompting a merger conversation. If that can happen in golf, the oldest, whitest sport out there, imagine what could unfold in women's hoops when the blueprint is in the hands of Black women. And we're seeing the ripple all the way across the women's sports landscape. NWSL players have been advocating for profit sharing and greater transparency in league finances, especially as viewership and sponsorship explode. The same force at play in the WNBA are being challenged everywhere. And it's becoming clear that athlete-owned models aren't the exception anymore. They're the next revolution. We also can't forget TGL, the new golf league, tech league created by Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy. It's fusing entertainment, digital broadcasting, and athlete equity in a whole new way. No middleman, no slow pivot, just direct control of audience, IP, and earnings. The message is loud. If you're just offering salary and visibility in 2025, you're behind. Athletes are more than labor. They're media platform, brand ecosystem, and investors in their own legacy. Unrivaled is tapping into that ethos, and not just tapping into it, scaling it. With real funding, smart infrastructure, and a player-first philosophy that's got economists watching closely and league executives everywhere adjusting their seat.
So when we say Unrivaled is bigger than a league, we mean it's a case study in how the future is being built right now, by the labor, for the labor. And when Black women are leading that charge, that's not just disruption, that's redesign. Here's the part they don't want you thinking about. The piece that got league execs sweating through their collar shirts. Unrivaled ain't a side hustle. It's leverage. It's calculated. It's intentional. It's a power play so sharp it shifted the entire energy in the CBA negotiations. Because for the first time ever, WNBA players got a real player-led, well-funded alternative. Not a fantasy, not a startup pipe dream, a platform with teeth. And when you've got options, you've got power. This ain't about asking for more. It's about showing what more looks like. And that's a whole different kind of pressure. Traditionally, when you hear the word strike, you think stoppage, lost checks, media spin, risk. But what if the players didn't just walk out? What if they walked into something better? What if they said, nah, we good. We already built the alternative. We already got equity. We're not begging for a seat. We're designing the room. That flips the game entirely. Because now every layup, every three ball, every dunk in Unrivaled is louder than just a bucket. It's a demand. It's a message drop right in the middle of the CBA table saying, we don't just want the system to change. We're already building the one that will replace it. That ain't just money making. It's movement making.
Exactly. Think about what that does to the negotiations. Now, normally a league like the W has all the cards, control of the media, control of the contract, and of course, no real competition. But Unrivaled flips that script. Now, when players walk into the CBA meeting, they're not just coming as workers. They're coming as owners, entrepreneurs, and media properties in their own right. And they're backed by capital, fan base, and a product that's already moving. This gives the union more leverage without the chaos of a full strike. It applies pressure in a smarter way. It shows proof of concept. It gives younger players something to align with. It says to the league, we're no longer negotiating out of desperation. We're negotiating from strength. And look, this doesn't mean every WNBA player walking away tomorrow, but it does mean that the league can no longer take their labor force for granted. That alone shifts the power of balance. Unrivaled is showing that player-led infrastructures are real. It's scalable and it's coming. So when we talk about labor organization, this is the new generation model. Don't wait, don't beg, build. And in doing that, you change the game, not just for yourself, but for everybody behind you.
Let's make it plain. This moment is bigger than basketball. It's the latest chapter in a legacy built by Black women athletes who've always had to create what didn't exist because the system refused to make room for their leadership. From Cheryl Swoops to Lisa Leslie, from Dawn Staley to Asia Wilson, they didn't just dominate the game, they carried it, they elevated it, and they did it while navigating structures designed to undervalue, underpay, and undermine them at every turn. Unrivaled is the evolution of that legacy, not just showing up to hoop, but showing up to own. The future of women's sports won't be built by leagues waiting to share. It'll be led by athletes who stop waiting altogether. This is what happens when labor becomes legacy, when athletes stop asking for change and start engineering it themselves. This ain't just an evolution, it's a revolution. Don't get it twisted. Unrivaled isn't just a new league. It's a model, a threat, a blueprint, a warning, a FAFO, a signal to every federation, every executive, every fan who thought the game could grow without honoring the women who built it. As we wrap this chapter in the CBA Reckoning series, let's leave no doubt. Ownership is the end game. not just for contracts or jerseys or social media followers, but of infrastructure, narrative, and legacy. As we wrap this chapter in the CBA Reckoning series, let's leave no doubt. Ownership is the end game, not just of contracts or jerseys or social media followers, but of infrastructure, narrative, and legacy. That's where the real power lies. And speaking of power moves, episode 4, Sabotaging the System, roster reconfigurations and the erasure of black leadership. We're pulling the veil off what's really going down, from calculated roster cuts and silent coach firings to media erasure. This ain't random, it's strategic. It's about control, it's about visibility, and it's about the quiet removal of black voices in leadership across the league. Make sure you locked in. Subscribe to Cess Talks Sports, BEWISE PoliSports Tea Time on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Like, comment, and put 10 more folks in the loop. Join the Respect Her advocacy movement and rep hashtag Respect Her Game, an advocacy initiative for black women in sports designed to protect legacy, build power, and secure generational wealth. Catch the full episode replay, then pull up live for the fan breakdown and community commentary. Because sports ain't just about who wins the game, it's about who owns the boardroom, who controls the narrative, and who gets paid for the labor they built this on. This is Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies, with one always watching the politics behind the play. Political Live. Stay sharp, stay tuned, talk soon. We out.